What do we got? Anything? Yes, sir.
I just want to be sure that you know, I'm sure you all do already, but those pollock fishermen that you've helped as much as you have are intercepting and bycatching an awful lot of the salmon that are going by Fort Yukon there. Next time you see them, maybe you just lean over and mention it to them and give them a little tremble.
I'll do that, and I'm hoping, I think you saw a couple articles recently in the paper, they've got to stop that bycatch. That's crucially important. It does affect their fisheries too. Because a lot of those pollock fishermen you're talking about are CDQ groups.
Right, and you've done a lot for them.
Yeah, and we have to continue to do that, and we're going to continue to do that. Along those lines, you know, the fisheries issue in this state is always, it's probably the hardest group in the world to represent, because they all think, every fisherman I know thinks that that fish belongs to them. It doesn't belong to the neighbor, it doesn't belong to their mothers or sisters or anybody else. And I've always argued that you guys get together, work together, and I think the CDP group worked out a pretty good solution to a problem. But you're right about the bycatch. We have to stop. Anytime you catch a high-value fish and try to catch a lower-value fish, although it's really very valuable, then you make a mistake. And I will encourage that. Yes, ma'am.
Could you describe the status of the legislation going through the House right now regarding military funding, and what would be the consequences, the ramifications were it passed?
Well, it went through the House by 6 votes. I, had some strong feelings about it. I mentioned this, you may have read it. It's probably the toughest vote I've made because the emotionalism of it. 2 things bother me. I've lived through 6 wars now, and that's more than some people in this room even think about. And I, in my heart of hearts, believe there's no way you can have 435 generals managing the war. If the Congress wants to stop the war in Iraq, then they ought to stop the funding 100% and take the responsibility for it. But you can't manage a war. And that's what we did in Vietnam, and people forget in Vietnam we lost 2 million people after we left Vietnam. The Killing Fields, how many remember that show? Not many, but you better remember. If you think that was a killing field, you haven't seen anything until you see the Middle East. The bill passed. The president will veto it. There's another reason I don't like the bill is there was $27 billion with spinach and peanuts, rice. Yeah. What the hell's that got to do with any troops? Have people stand and say, I support the troops, but I want, $20 million for spinach. I didn't know Pop Body was fighting this war. Strawberries. Strawberries got to do it. Rice fields. What's rice got to do? That's your name. I can go through the line. So it is over in the Senate, passed one. It's in conference now. If they don't come up, some of the president says he will veto it, and it will be vetoed. It will be so state. And I challenge those that don't agree with me, if you don't want it, then vote 100%, take the responsibility for it. They do have a majority, and then have that burden on their back for my troops. And by the way, keep in mind one thing, I do spend time with the troops that are over there, and when they come back. Out of 100, there may be 1 disgruntled GI. Those are voluntary individuals that believe in what they're doing, not somebody in CNN or Fox or NBC or ABC. Not somebody that's embedded in the conflict. I had one young man who just woke me the other day, and I had tears in my eyes. He's been deployed 3 times, but he's going back because he wants to, because he believes in his duty and his charge and what he's been able to accomplish. But you don't hear about that. Now, some of you may have read my comments, but if we made any one mistake as we went in, this is something you can't do because it's not politically acceptable. We should have looked at the history of Iraq. Iraq was never, ever one country until the British came in and over the Ottoman Empire and made one, and they put a dictator in. Read your history. It's always been 3 countries. If we'd gone in and said, let's have 3 democracies, it might have worked. Or 3 dictatorships, it might have worked. But we didn't do that because we're trying to convey the idea of a democracy. Now, if we pull out, this is one thing I want everybody to understand. If we pull out like they want us to do in August of 2008, why would they pick that number? Election time. We pull out from underneath our troops, take our troops home immediately, move them back home, and supposedly protect our troops when they say they're doing their duty and they believe in what they're doing. What right do we have to do that? Why does that cut their legs out from underneath them? And then what happens? Remember, Saddam was a Sunni who killed the Shiites and the Kurds by the hundreds and the thousands. Look at those graves. What the idea was a good guy? He was a Hitler, or worse.
He sold them the weapons.
And in fact, worse. Now think about this a moment. Just think about this a moment. We pull out, and remember this, the Shiites will go after the Sunnis, and who else are the Sunnis of the Mideast? Saudi Arabia. And who else in the Middle East are Shiites? Iran. And by the way, what are my good friends the Kurds doing? Very quietly, arming themselves immensely. Now we have a serious problem. We pull out, no stability, and the Shiites will try to kill the Sunnis, and the Saudis will support the Sunnis, and Iran will support the Shiites, and then the Kurds will come in from the north, and you have a cauldron of destruction beyond anyone's imagination. Anyone's imagination. And the ultimate goal, my friends, right, wrong, or indifferent, whether you agree with it or not, is to eliminate Israel. And if you think Israel's going to sit there quietly by baloney, and they have nuclear capability, and we're in the Third World War. Nuclear Third World War. I want you all to think about that a moment. I've thought a lot, and I've read a lot, and I think I know what I'm talking about. You may not agree with me, but are you willing to take that risk? Are you willing to start that Third World War? Are you willing to take the responsibility of over 5 million people killed? That's something you have to ask yourself.
Are you voted to go there?
Would you comment on Nancy Pelosi and her trip?
Well,
Or you want to laugh a lot?
no, I have to say, Nancy's the speaker. Nancy's the speaker. And she can do what she wants to do.
But we're paying for it.
Well, you are. But she also wanted her airplane to fly back and forth every weekend with a 767, too. Now think about that a moment. She's the speaker. I disrespect the idea that she can go over and speak for the United States, even as Speaker of the House, in an issue that's very crucial. I think the President's very crucial. And we'll see what happens. And it'll take in 2 years' time. We'll see how good that rose glows and how the petals shine. We don't know. We'll see what happens.
What do you think of Jay Hammond's Iraq dividend idea? The 20-minute video that he made about.
The idea, if we could do it, but, you know, we're dictating to Iraq and what we're going to do. You know, I don't know whether that will work or not. You know, it's something that possibly could be.
Have you advanced this idea in the House?
I have promoted the permanent dividend fund more ways than Iraq. I think it's a good idea.
What's up with Lisa's bill that she had about the Iraq dividend?
I don't know.
Do you
Yes, Lisa. I don't deal with the Senate side.
Do you think
I have my
that?
own little ball game on my side. Remember, I served as a Senate and hated it. I'm never going to go to the Senate side. I won't do it.
No, but do you feel we could end the war itself and not have to discuss troop levels and all that if we?
I can't talk to that. I don't know whether it happened or not. Yeah. How was your day? My day was good. My day is very good. Every time I wake up, it's good. You know, I'm 74 years old. And when I wake up, I still got the fire in the belly, and I got the ability, I believe, to do what I think is correct because the people support me. When they don't, you know, as I said before, I'll come home. And by the way, I will come home. I'm not going to stay in Washington, D.C. God help you in 100-degree weather.